The Silent Guardian. The Galactic repository hung in Earth's orbit like a crystalline satellite, its spiral architecture reflecting starlight in mesmerizing patterns. Inside, Ilara Wright moved through the cavernous main hall with practiced efficiency, her footsteps barely audible against the polished obsidian floor. Her gray uniform blended with the metallic shelves, making her nearly invisible to the occasional visitor who wandered through the repository's public sections. At 53, Ilara had served as chief archivist for 19 years. Most species in the Galactic Confederation viewed her position as ceremonial. Humans were newcomers to interstellar politics, after all. The repository had been gifted to Earth after first contact, ostensibly to preserve humanity's cultural heritage. Few questioned why the Confederation had been so generous, or why they insisted the facility remain in Earth orbit rather than on the planet's surface. Ilara knew better. She also knew why her right wrist bore a geometric tattoo that resembled an ancient star chart, knowledge she kept to herself as she dutifully maintained the greatest collection of human knowledge ever assembled. Archivist Wright. Call the voice from behind her. There's a situation at reception. Ilara turned to see Kai Chen, her young assistant, hurrying toward her. His normally composed expression had given way to anxiety. What kind of situation? She asked, already moving toward the main entrance. Vespians, Kai replied, keeping pace. A delegation of 7, led by Ambassador Zextral. They're demanding access to the restricted archives. Ilara's steps faltered for just a moment. The Vespians, insectoid beings with a rigid caste system and territorial ambitions that had been checked only by the Confederation's treaties. They had opposed human membership in the Confederation from the beginning. On what grounds? She asked, her voice betraying nothing. They claim they've discovered ancient territorial rights to the Sol system. They want to examine the original Earth Confederation Charter. Ilara nodded. The charter was indeed in the restricted archives, along with other documents the public never saw. Let's not keep the ambassador waiting. The reception area's vaulted ceiling soared 30 meters overhead, adorned with constellations from Earth's night sky. Standing in the center, 7 Vespians created a stark contrast to the elegant human architecture surrounding them. Their chitinous exoskeletons gleamed dully under the artificial lighting, compound eyes reflecting fractured images of the room. Ambassador Zextrol stood at the front, his ceremonial mantle denoting his status. As Ilara approached, his mandibles clicked in what passed for a Vespian smile. Archivist Wright, he said, his translator converting the clicking sounds into smooth English. How fortunate. We expected to deal with subordinates. The repository is my responsibility, Ambassador, Ilara replied with a slight bow. I understand you wish to access the restricted archives. Indeed, we have discovered records suggesting your planet's integration into the Confederation may have overlooked prior claims. The Vespian Empire charted this system 12,000 years ago. Ilara maintained her neutral expression. That predates recorded human civilization. Precisely, Zextrol clicked. Making our claims superior, we require access to verify the oversight. The restricted archives contain sensitive materials, Ilara said. Protocol requires formal application through Confederation channels. We have dispensation, the ambassador stated, producing a crystal data chip, signed by 3 council members. Ilara accepted the chip, examining its authentication marks. They appeared genuine, though something about the timing felt wrong. The Vespians had never shown interest in Earth's archives before. Very well, she said finally. I'll escort you personally. As they walked deeper into the repository, Kai fell into step beside her, whispering urgently, Ilara, this feels wrong. The security systems will remain active, she finished quietly. Stay alert. The tattooed symbol on her wrist seemed to pulse faintly as they approached the security checkpoint leading to the restricted archives. Standard procedure required genetic authentication, but Ilara knew the Vespians would have prepared for this. Our authority supersedes standard protocols, Zextrol stated as they reached the massive doors. Of course, Ilara replied. However, I must still verify your dispensation. She stepped to a control panel, inserting the crystal chip. As the system processed the authorization, one of the Vespian guards leaned toward Zex Troll, chittering softly. The ambassador's compound eyes swiveled toward Ilara's exposed wrist. An interesting mark, he observed. Decorative. Just an old remnant, Ilara replied. From before I became an archivist. It resembles a navigation cycle. Another Vespian commented. From the old Armada. Ilara smiled blandly. Many humans have tattoos. They rarely mean anything significant. The console chimed, indicating the dispensation had been verified. The massive doors slid open with barely a sound, revealing a long corridor lined with preservation units. The charter would be in Section 7, Ilara said, leading the way, along with the original first contact protocols. As they walked, Kai maintained a careful distance behind the Vespian delegation. Ilara noted how their guards moved, not with the caution of diplomatic security, but with the practiced precision of military units. Their mandibles clicked in patterns she recognized as tactical communications. They weren't here for historical research. At Section A level of the vaulting was a glass panel. In the reflection, Ilara caught sight of one of the Vespians touching a device concealed beneath his carapace. She immediately knew they were jamming communications. Ambassador, she said, stopping before a large circular door. The charter is kept in this secure vault. I'll need to deactivate the preservation field. As she approached the control panel, Zextrol moved closer, his compound eyes studying her movements. Your species maintains such elaborate security for mere documents. History shapes the future, Ambassador. We prefer to keep it intact. Her fingers moved across the panel in a specific sequence, not the standard access code, but something older, something programmed into the repository systems before it ever reached Earth orbit. What are you doing? Zex Troll demanded, suddenly alert. Accessing the charter, as requested. Ilara's voice remained calm, but her eyes met Kai's briefly. He gave an almost imperceptible nod and began slowly backing toward the entrance. The tattooed symbol on her wrist now glowed faintly, reacting to something in the security systems. One of the Vespian guards noticed, his mandibles clicking rapidly. Ambassador. Her marking. It's active. Zextrol's translator couldn't fully convey the alarm in his voice. Restrain her. This is not a mere archivist. But it was too late. Ilara had already pressed her palm against the central panel, her tattoo aligning perfectly with an identical symbol hidden beneath the surface. The repository's lights dimmed momentarily, then brightened to a harsh white. Security Protocol Mnemosine activated, announced a synthetic voice. Restricted Archives lockdown initiated. Heavy barriers slid from the ceiling at each intersection, separating the Vespian guards from their ambassador. Kai had already slipped through the entrance door before it sealed. What have you done? Zextrol demanded, his translator struggling to convey his fury. Ilara straightened, her demeanor transforming. Gone was the deferential archivist, replaced by something harder, more determined. You didn't come for historical research, Ambassador, she said calmly. Your guard formations, your jamming devices. This isn't a diplomatic mission. You have no authority. I have every authority, Ilara interrupted. This repository isn't just an archive. It's a safeguard. Around them, hidden panels in the walls slid open, revealing advanced systems far beyond what the public sections displayed. Holographic interfaces sprang to life, showing security feeds throughout the repository and beyond, monitoring streams from across Earth's defense network. What is this? Zextrol's compound eyes reflected the sudden proliferation of displays. The real purpose of the Galactic Repository, Ilara explained. When the Confederation gifted this facility to humanity, they thought they were establishing an observation post, a way to monitor our development while appearing benevolent. She moved between the consoles with practiced ease, her fingers dancing across interfaces that responded specifically to her touch, to the encoded information in her tattoo. What they didn't realize was that we knew exactly what they were doing. This facility was modified before it ever reached Earth orbit. The repository serves its stated purpose, preserving human knowledge, but it also houses Earth's most sophisticated defense systems. On the screens, Ilara could see Kai had reached the emergency protocol station. Good. The secondary systems would be coming online soon. "You're not just an archivist," Zextrol stated, his translator flattening what must have been a complex mix of emotions. "No," Ilara agreed. "I'm Guardian 7 of the Earth Defense Initiative." The tattoo your guards mocked. "It's a biometric key." Outside, the repository's exterior was transforming. Panels shifted to reveal defense arrays previously hidden beneath the ornate architecture. In orbit around the facility, cloaked satellites activated, creating a protective network. "Your delegation came with falsified credentials, advanced jamming technology, and military formations," Ilara continued. "You plan to access our secure files, not to verify historical claims, but to alter them, to create a precedent for challenging Earth's sovereignty." Zextrol's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation his translator couldn't mask. "You cannot prove this." "I don't need to," Ilara replied, gesturing to a screen showing Vespian ships decloaking near Jupiter. "Your invasion fleet is evidence enough." The ambassador went still, his compound eyes fixed on the display. "Those vessels are merely warships," Ilara finished for him, "with enough firepower to overwhelm Earth's conventional defenses. You timed this perfectly, diplomatic distraction, while your fleet moves into position." She tapped a series of commands, and the repository hummed with increasing power. "Unfortunately for you, Earth's conventional defenses aren't our only option." Throughout the facility, systems that had lain dormant for decades awakened. The true purpose of the Galactic Repository was revealing itself, not just an archive of human knowledge, but a fortress protecting humanity's future. "What happens now?" Zextrol asked, his earlier confidence evaporating. Ilara's expression remained impassive. "Now, Ambassador, we wait. Your forces have a choice to make, and so do you." On the screens surrounding them, the Vespian ships had frozen in position, caught in the targeting systems of weapons they'd never suspected Earth possessed. The silent guardian of humanity's knowledge had just become its most visible defender. And the Vespians were about to learn why underestimating humans was always a costly mistake. The archive speaks. Kai Chen's hands trembled slightly as he activated the secondary control station. When he'd applied for the assistant archivist position 3 years ago, he'd never imagined finding himself in the middle of an interstellar standoff. The repository had always seemed so peaceful, a place of learning, not warfare. The console before him pulsed with life, displaying systems he'd never seen before. Emergency protocols scrolled across the screen, awaiting his confirmation. "Authorization required," the system prompted. Kai hesitated. He'd watched Ilara press her tattooed wrist against security panels countless times, but he had no such mark. What he did have was the access code she'd whispered to him as they'd approached the restricted archives. Mnemosyne's daughter remembers. He typed it in, heart pounding. Secondary authorization confirmed. The system acknowledged. Activating defensive grid. Throughout the repository, hidden mechanisms whirred to life. Temperature regulators adjusted, air circulation systems reconfigured, and quantum communication arrays established direct links to Earth's Defense Command. The scholarly facade of the facility was revealing its military skeleton. Meanwhile, in the restricted archives, Ilara maintained her position opposite Ambassador Zextrol. The screens surrounding them showed the standoff in space, the Vespian warships now illuminated by targeting systems they couldn't detect, much less evade. "You've been planning this for decades," Zextrol said, his translator unable to fully convey the complex emotions behind his clicking mandibles. "Longer," Ilara corrected. "The Earth Defense Initiative began before first contact. We've always known we weren't alone in the universe, Ambassador. We prepared accordingly. Impossible. Your species was primitive when the Confederation arrived. Ilara smiled thinly. We've always excelled at appearing less advanced than we are. It's a survival strategy. She gestured to one of the screens, where images of ancient human civilizations flashed by. Humanity has faced extinction many times throughout our history. We've learned to prepare for threats we cannot yet see. A communication alert chimed, and Kay's face appeared on one of the displays. Primary defense grid active, he reported. Earth Command acknowledges the situation. Thank you, Kai, Ilara responded. Maintain position. Zextral's compound eyes swiveled between Ilara and the screen showing his fleet. What do you intend to do? Destroy our ships. The Confederation would view that as an act of war. We have no intention of firing first, Ilara said. But make no mistake, we will defend ourselves. Your ships will withdraw, and you will remain here until Confederation authorities arrive to investigate your falsified credentials and unauthorized military deployment. The ambassador's exoskeleton shifted in what might have been the Vespian equivalent of indignation. You have no authority to detain a Confederation ambassador. Under normal circumstances, no, Ilara agreed. But when that ambassador participates in an attempted invasion, the protocols are quite different. She turned to another console and activated a communication channel. This is Guardian 7 to Vespian Fleet. Your position has been compromised, and your mission is revealed. Withdraw immediately or face defensive measures. There was a long pause before a response came through. Clicks and chittering translated into terse standard. Human facility. This is Commander Vexinar. We recognize no authority from your position. Ambassador Zextral speaks for the Vespian Empire. Ilara glanced at the ambassador. Would you like to explain to your commander what's happening, or shall I? Before Zextral could respond, alarms blared throughout the archives. On the screens, 3 of the Vespian vessels were moving into attack formation. They're calling our bluff, Ilara murmured, then raised her voice. Activate Athena Protocol. From the repository, invisible pulses of energy radiated outward. When they reached the advancing Vespian ships, the vessels suddenly lost power, drifting helplessly in space. What have you done? Zextral demanded, mandibles clicking frantically. Targeted EMP, Ilara explained, designed specifically for Vespian technology. Your ship's life support systems remain functional, but weapons, propulsion, and communications are temporarily disabled. She turned back to the communications panel. Commander Vexinar, your vessels will be towed to Confederation security stations. Your crews will be unharmed if they cooperate. The remaining Vespian ships maintain their positions, apparently unwilling to risk the same fate as their companions. This is an act of war, Zextral hissed. No, Ambassador, Ilara corrected. This is self-defense against your act of war. There's a significant difference, one the Confederation Council will recognize. In the secondary control room, Kai watched the situation unfold with increasing awe. The humble archivist he'd worked alongside for years had transformed into something else entirely, a strategic commander with access to technologies he'd never imagined Earth possessed. A new alert appeared on his console. 3 Confederation peacekeeping vessels had appeared at the edge of the solar system, responding to emergency beacons the repository had activated. Ilara, he called through the communication system. Confederation response inbound. Acknowledged. She turned to Zextral. It seems your plan has failed completely, Ambassador. The Confederation will be here within hours. The ambassador's posture shifted, mandibles working rapidly. This changes nothing. The Vespian Empire has legitimate claims to this system. When the full truth emerges. The truth, Ilara interrupted, is precisely what this facility preserves. She gestured around them. These archives contain the complete, unaltered history of humanity's interactions with the Confederation, including the original surveys showing this system was unclaimed when humans evolved here. She stepped closer, her voice dropping. But that's not what you were after, was it? Your real goal was to access our historical databases, not to read them, but to alter them, to insert false evidence of prior Vespian claims. Zextrol went very still. What you didn't realize, Ilara continued, is that the archives cannot be altered. Every document is quantum locked. Any change creates a divergent version, while the original remains intact. Your tampering would have been immediately obvious. You cannot prove these accusations. The devices your guards were carrying will prove it for me, Ilara replied. Quantum scramblers designed to manipulate data archives. Their mere presence violates 17 Confederation treaties. On the screens, Earth Defense Forces had begun to escort the disabled Vespian vessels toward Confederation checkpoints. The invasion had been thwarted before most of humanity even knew it was happening. Kai's voice came through again. Ilara, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the ambassador's ceremonial mantle. Ilara's eyes narrowed. Remove it, she ordered Zextrol. Slowly. The ambassador's compound eyes reflected fractured light as he reluctantly reached for the clasp at his thorax. This is a diplomatic outrage. The outrage is what's hidden in that mantle, Ilara countered. Quantum destabilizers, if I'm not mistaken, designed to corrupt the archives at their core. As if confirming her words, the mantle began to emit a high-pitched whine, its surface shimming with increasing energy. It's armed, Kai shouted through the comm. In one swift motion, Ilara slammed her palm against another hidden panel. A crystalline barrier erupted from the floor, encasing Zextrol and his mantle in transparent material. Containment field active, she reported as the whine from the mantle reached a crescendo, then abruptly silenced as the device detonated harmlessly within the field. When the light faded, Zextrol remained standing, unharmed but thoroughly captured, his compound eyes reflecting the barrier surrounding him. You knew, he said simply. We've been studying Vespian technology for decades, Ilara replied. Did you really think we wouldn't recognize a quantum destabilizer? You weren't just trying to alter our records. You were attempting to destroy the entire archive. The human species remains an aberration in the galactic order, Zextrol said, his translator conveying cold determination. Your advancement has been too rapid, your integration too seamless. Many species question your origins, and destroying our history would make those questions easier to exploit. Ilara nodded, a clever strategy, but fundamentally flawed in its understanding of humanity. She gestured to the archives surrounding them. We preserve our knowledge not just in databases and quantum storage, but in ourselves. Each guardian carries the essential history and knowledge of our species, encoded genetically, impossible to erase. She touched her tattooed wrist. This mark isn't just a security key. It's a mnemonic trigger for the knowledge I contain. Even if you had destroyed every document in these archives, you couldn't erase what we know. The containment field hummed softly as Zextrol absorbed her words. The Confederation has underestimated your species, he finally acknowledged. A common mistake, Ilara agreed. One that rarely happens twice. Hours later, with Confederation peacekeepers having taken custody of the Vespian delegation and their disabled fleet, Ilara stood in the main hall of the repository with Kai at her side. The facility had returned to its normal appearance, its defensive systems once again hidden beneath the scholarly facade. So you're not really an archivist? Kai asked, still trying to process everything he'd witnessed. Ilara smiled. I am very much an archivist, Kai. That was never a deception. I just happen to be other things as well. And the tattoo. It's really some kind of genetic key. She glanced at the geometric pattern on her wrist. It's that, and more. 7 guardians, 7 tattoos, each connecting us to different aspects of Earth's defense and history. Kai considered this. And you chose me as your assistant because you have the potential to become a guardian yourself, Ilara said simply. If you choose that path. She gestured around the repository. at the knowledge and history surrounding them. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our adaptability, though those help. It's our understanding that knowledge itself is power. We remember our past to secure our future. Through the vast windows of the main hall, Earth hung in the darkness of space, blue and green and white, seemingly fragile, but more protected than anyone in the galaxy had realized. The Vespians won't be the last to underestimate us, Ilara said quietly. But each time it happens, the lesson becomes clearer. Humanity isn't just another species finding its place in the galactic community. She turned to Kai, her expression serious. We are the librarians of our own destiny, and some archives should never be breached. In orbit around them, the Galactic Repository continued its silent vigil, a monument to human knowledge that concealed humanity's quiet determination to preserve, to protect, and when necessary, to defend not just their planet, but the truth of who they were and what they might become. The galaxy had mocked the humble archivist and her strange tattoo. They wouldn't make that mistake again.